Welcome back to the Diplomatic Lounge. This is our July 2026 episode, and it's going to be somewhat different than the previous ones. Normally we try to give some background to current events and to analyze some situations, but this time we want to launch an appeal. And that appeal concerns very specific situations in Cuba. Now, all of us who have worked in Cuba and who came to love the people and the culture, not the politics, know what a special place it is. It is a special place in Spanish colonial history. And in the 1920s and the 1930s, it became nothing less than the Paris of the Caribbean. And all of that has left the city with an enormous legacy in architecture, from the Baroque colonial city to marvels of Art Nouveau and Art Deco in sometimes even in remote suburbs. As of 1995, when I started working in Havana first, I became very close friends with Dr. Eusebio Leal, who was the city historian, historiador de la ciudad, but was in fact the driving force and the spirit behind all the restorations undertaken in Havana Vieja. This was part of tourism as the new economy, that's true, but the approach was again very Cuban, because it was not just restoring old buildings, it was also a social project, integrating often marginalized people who lived in those neglected barrios into the newly renovated buildings. And this was very successful. Havana Vieja, of course, was the main focus, but we know, and all of us who have roamed the streets of Havana know, that there are marvels of later architecture in outlying suburbs even that would be worth preserving. But this is probably utopian, because the new Havana, whatever it will be like, will have a very different urban life. We don't know what the United States intends to do. Will there be an American intervention? Neither do we know how the Cuban counterparts, not very well defined, will handle this situation. But at any rate, we see that there is a threat to this cultural and especially architectonical legacy. That's why we appeal to all concerned to respect the spirit of the great work done by Dr. Leal, and that Old Havana especially is not turned into some kind of Disneyland or a big shopping mall with wild advertising and cheap commercial outlets all over the place. This would be really a disaster and a sin against the spirit of the city. I have to admit that I have a scary example before my eyes. When the war against Iraq was started, I thought we Europeans should have appealed to respect for the cultural and archaeological legacy of Iraq. That didn't happen. There was a lot of looting and lots of objects disappeared on the black market. And probably, as we're speaking, the same is happening in Lebanon. So there are a number of bad examples, but we hope that we can make the future of Havana at least a partial success, and that whatever happens, whatever the new Cuba is like, whatever the new politics are like, whatever the new rulers are like, that the spirit of the city, as so marvelously resuscitated by Dr. Leal, can survive. Please spread the word in that sense. Thank you and goodbye.